Greetings and welcome to Just Stories. I'm your host and narrator, Montgomery Sterling McGale. And today we will begin in the series of weekly stories from my books. And because we're friends now, you can call me Monty. These are stories about my clan, family, kids, growing up on the prairies of Western Canada. And at present, myself and my lovely assistant are coming to you from the wilds of Western Canada, the beautiful province of British Columbia. So let's dive right in and start out with the first story in Tuppy Diggers entitled Cobra. Four boys standing on a 2x4 rail, top of a backyard fence, crows on a limb, perched, chatting. Something's gotta give. Orange and White House sat at the southern edge of Lloydminster's newest neighborhood. Its modest dimensions and two-toned, wood-clad exterior were a reflection of the area's young families, determined to make a good showing of themselves in the early 1960s. Peter McGale was no exception. As proprietor of an uptown business, it was time to leverage the good name of McGale's Laundry and Dry Cleaning into a suitable asset: home ownership. Being a renter for the first few years of a marriage was fine. Time to establish roots. Kids needed a decent area to run free, and Olga would be queen of her own home. A grand notion. Bankers were met, contracts signed, hands shook. Somebody owns a home. Phil, Kelly, Monty, and Trevor, McGale boys, aged 4 through 10, stood atop a 4-foot tall fence in the backyard. Wooden panels that formed the sturdy body of the fence were capped with a board 4 inches wide, our tentative foothold. Occasionally an arm waved and brought balance to a slightly wayward body. We stood on the fence and looked at the grass in the backyard of our new house. We talked. We asked the tough questions. I wonder if you could do a front flip from this fence. Warm summer breeze filled the air with a certain freshness, a freshness that caressed young faces and whispered, "You can do anything." It was a new place, a new time. All was possible. Who's going to try it first? As de facto leader of the group, by virtue of his age and height, we often looked to oldest brother Phil for leadership. After careful consideration, Phil intoned, "I think it would be proper that the youngest go first, followed by the next oldest, and so on." Lined in chronologic order, Trevor found himself at the end of the spectrum, leaned slightly forward to make his retort clear. Flail of arms brought him back to equilibrium as he said, "I ain't going first, you go." Debate was on. Each made a poignant case as to who should be the first to make a headlong leap into the blue and wow us with a wondrous front flip that would christen this new house and have things started on the right foot. At no point in the discussion was a person's ability or previous flipping experience used as fodder. No, it was all about who was going first. Certain traits of a fellow's character were cited, both pro and con. You don't want to go first because you're chicken. You're chicken because everyone knows a chicken can't do a front flip. So you should go first to prove you're not a chicken. With 4 participants, combinations of alliances switched back and forth with lightning speed. Kelly stated, "Phil has done plenty of flips. In fact, last Sunday at Grandma's, He did a front flip in the kitchen because he was so happy we are going to have rice pudding for dessert. And that's a fact. And you can ask Grandma because she was there. So there. So Phil shouldn't go first because he's all flipped out. You should be first. Valid points were raised by all. We four crows kicked insults, ideas, and slurs back and forth until it happened. A voice cut through the rhetoric. I'll do it. Trevor's words ended the debate. Three of us looked down the line to his diminutive 4-year-old frame. I said, I'll do it. Now, what do I do? Heads swiveled to Phil. A monologue on the finer points of the front flip. First, it's really important to get into the flipping frame of mind. You have to see yourself doing it in your head. The front somersault is all about balance and timing. If an answer to a question required a single word, Phil often found a way to stretch a simple retort into a diatribe that left the questioner in a less informed state than previously. And so it was with Trevor. Kelly and I glanced down the fence line as Phil filled Trevor's head with far too many words. His 4-year-old brain tried to handle the word fest. Initial flush of bravado melted from his face. But Trevor knew the code. Once a man's word had been given, it can't be taken back. He knew he had to live up to his commitment or forever be known as a Welsher. This was one burden Trevor couldn't live with. 3 older brothers holding him forever in contempt. He would have to follow through. Visibly lacking in confidence and experience, we all took turns faking our verbal way through the execution of a front flip. None of us had ever performed the maneuver over solid ground. Best anyone could boast were sloppy flops at the swimming pool, but we weren't going to let Trevor know that. Goal was to bombard him with our bravura, convince him it was a piece of cake to dive from a 4-foot fence, spin 360 degrees, and land gracefully on your feet, to wild applause of the assembled. As soon as you are airborne, you have to tuck into a ball that will spin you around, one said, and another seconded. Yeah, and don't forget to spread your arms while landing, because that's the best way to do it. Trevor's face was a reflection of his state of mind. Too much information came at him to be processed properly. Look of doubt told us we had to be more convincing, more sincere, more believable. Santa can do a front flip. I used my learned voice. In fact, he invented it. Being a year older than Trevor, I knew how influential the pull of this mythic figure was in his young life. His face slowly came out of its pucker. Santa gives special presents to boys that can flip like him. Perhaps it was too much, but this seemed to do the trick. Trevor radiated with hope of better things to come. All would be right with the world. He came alive with the thought that Santa smiled down at him, blessed his venture. Wellspring of confidence rose within. Trevor stood upright, beaming face held high, smacked his arms stiffly to his sides, bent his knees, and sprang into the summer air. Launch was a thing of beauty. With little legs fully sprung and knees locked, he looked like a board as he rotated to fully upside down. Gravity had done a marvelous job. Little board of a boy rammed headfirst into the ground. Kid caver. Trevor's pile-driven body stalled for a nanosecond as the shock of fairly firm, sod-covered ground registered through his spine, then crumpled like an accordion. Dazed but still alive, Trevor sat up. Brain sent his mouth a signal. placed both hands on his head, and ran into the house screaming, "My head! My head!" It should be understood that the three of us left balanced on the fence had melted into a mound of blubbering jelly, falling on the grass, killing ourselves with laughter. Injuries were sustained that summer day, our sides and hoarse throats from excessive amounts of merriment, and Trevor's ego at the continual fits of pointing and chuckling that lasted weeks as replayed versions of the diving board were told to anyone that cared to listen. Maybe a little brain damage was sustained. Hard to say. End of chapter 1. Caver.